students, let's start our lesson. Today's scene will be about indirect speech in orders, requests, advice, or suggestions. The use of indirect speech in orders, requests, advice, or suggestions. So it's very interesting theme, and the aim of the lesson is: what is indirect speech in orders, requests, and advice? The use of indirect speech in orders, requests, and advice. In the first half of the lessons, students will get to know what is indirect speech in orders, requests, and advice. And in the second half of the lesson, students will do exercises using the new topic. In indirect speech, we use ask, tell, and advise like these to report requests, orders, and advice. So here are some examples. The first example: the secretary asked us to fill in the form. Here we used the verb ask to report the request of somebody. And the second example: Mr. Mills told the children to stand up. Here we used the verb told to order somebody. And the last sentence: the doctor advised Mr. Preston to exercise. Here we used the verb advise to advise somebody to do something. When the request, order, or piece of advice is negative, we add not before to. For example, Mr. Mills told the children not to stand up. We can use these verbs to explain what people say, but we don't necessarily use their exact words. Other common verbs in this structure are advise, forbid, invite, order, persuade, remind, warn. Example: you really should stop smoking. He advised him to stop smoking. Please come to my party. Okay, I will. I invited you to come to my party. We use these reporting verbs with an infinitive: agree, offer, promise, refuse, threaten. Example: okay, I'll tell Jamie. She agreed to tell Jamie. Here we used an infinitive to tell. As well, we use ing form after these reporting verbs, like admit, deny, suggest. For example, I got the answer wrong. He admitted getting the answer wrong. So after the verb admit, we used the ing form, getting, in this example. Grammar in action. The first rule: we can use indirect speech to report what someone has told us to do. For example, a doctor. The doctor prescribed some pills for me and told me to take them 3 times a day. The second rule: we can use indirect speech to report what we have told someone else to do. For example, advice we gave to someone about to take an exam. I told you to keep calm and to read the questions carefully. I reminded you to put your watch on the desk in front of you. And I warned you not to look at other students. Reporting commands, orders, requests, advice. Indirect commands, orders, requests, or advice advice in negative form are expressed by a verb tell or some other appropriate verbs using an object, not an infinitive. For example, our teacher tells us not to eat during the lesson. Here we used the object as and an infinitive to eat and negative not. We used a negative not before the verb, before the main verb to eat. Before the main verb, I mean the infinitive. So let's pay attention to the other examples when we use orders, requests, prohibitions. Dad says, "Come home, boys." So we order someone to do something. Dad tells the boys to come home. Here we use the verb tell. We order. Mom says, "Be quiet, girls." Mom tells the girls to be quiet. The cops say, "Stop and stand still." The cops tell to stop and stand still. Requests. I say to Ben, "Sit down, please." I ask Ben to sit down. Little Mary says, "Tell me a story." Little Mary asks to tell her a story. Mom says to us, "Be careful, please." Mom asks us to be careful. Prohibitions. Ted says, "Don't argue, Bob." Ted asks Bob not to argue. She says to me, "Don't cry." She asks me not to cry. Dad says, "Don't play with fire, boys." Dad tells the boys not to play with fire. Here we used orders, requests, prohibitions. So today I have just explained to you the theme indirect speech in orders, requests, advice, or suggestions. We have learned with you how to use them appropriately in our speech. Thank you for attention. Goodbye.